Yeah. I I couldn't remember, but the Lord was talking to me this afternoon about my husband and telling me that that I guess no one would ever realize what a phenomenal man he really is. And he is, he's like me. I'm nothing like anybody else, but you see, neither is he. I don't know of another man like him. And he sometimes sees things so differently that he makes me go, oh, I didn't see it that way before. See, so not realizing it, we work those things together. It's like sometimes Lee would come out with something and I go, oh, I never saw that before. And, well, that's the way he does to me sometimes. Uh, he's a man of wisdom. He's a man of understanding. He's a compassionate man, and he cares very much about God, and he watches over the things he does, and if he makes a slip, he is quick to go back to God. Now there was a period of time that he never did that, but then there was a period of time where I never did either. So uh, these women who are married to men who haven't spiritually grown fast enough to suit them, it is because they don't want to do their homework. I have to say that. Because you see, your homework is learning how to grow in long suffering and endurance and understanding, in love and compassion. And as you, Ruthie, you know me better than anybody, and you know how God has formed me that way. It's not even a thought to be any other way.
Right. Yep.
It's not even a temptation, it's the way I go. And we'll be talking, and you'll even see it. That's the way I go. That's the way I operate. Well, these women and even some men that are married to those who they think trouble them so bad, they ought to reverse that. And like I had said, make a list. Make a list of all the good things about your husband or your wife, and make a list of all the bad things. And when you look at all the bad things, you will find that they are pure selfishness on your part. Because it's not really a bad quality that they have, it is what you selfishly would want them to be and do, which is an entirely different thing. And it is because of that that a lot of marriages go downhill because whichever it is, man or woman, a spouse, they don't want to take the time to be holy. They don't, they want to jump over the process. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, it is easier to believe that person is totally wrong because they're not like me. It is easier to say, well, they're going to go down because God has to move them because I'm the only one serving God. And nobody will ever convince me women don't do that because I heard too many. I sat in the presence of too many that thought like that. And like I said, uh, I either did those things and repented of it, or I never touched them. And probably in doing some things and repenting, then it opened up the door for me to see enough to never touch. But it's always because God always will come to you. He will nudge you. He will urge you. He will speak to you. And you must take what he's saying to you because it's the easiest way out for you. Actually, it's the key that unlocks the door to the truth about yourself. And it is easier for a Christian to back up, shut their mouth, and walk away. I mean, you could do that in arguments, you could do that in anything. But you see, most people, Christians, they'll back up, they'll shut their mouth, and they'll walk away believing with all their heart that other one is going to pay. And that is not God. That is not where Jesus is. That is not what he wants. He says so in Matthew when he says about forgiving. And if you don't forgive, you'll be tormented. And so, I mean, you could look at somebody and say, well, they're tormented. They have this disease. They have. So I know there's. No, you don't know anything. You know nothing if you think you know what is in the life and heart of another person, because that is none of your business. Even if they were a member of your church, even if you were a pastor, minding their business, you wonder why. And I know of a situation where this pastor had a board, and that board uh, accused his wife of cheating on him. And they claimed they caught her or whatever. I don't know how true that is. I just heard this about this pastor. And what he did was is the board says didn't want him to reconcile with his wife. So maybe he caught her, maybe I don't know. But I do know they were totally against him taking his wife back. What business is it of theirs to be against a man who, as an adult, makes a choice to work things out with his wife? God is not in the business of destroying marriages. He's in the business of keeping them together. And he's going to do everything within his power to keep your marriage together. But you see, these people, what they did is then they started gossiping and going to him and saying, well, we saw her do this and we saw her say that. Till the point she got to the point she wouldn't even go to church anymore. Could you imagine a pastor's wife being so destroyed that she wouldn't even go into church anymore? And so what they did was is they wanted him to do something about her. You know what I would have done? I would have resigned from that church, or I would have, if I had the power, I'd have kicked them all out and taken them off my board. You don't need people like that to be in a position to advise you. That's insane. Working against your life. What were you going to say, Ruthie?
I just said that's right. I was agreeing.
Yeah. Hey, they're literally working against the Holy Spirit in your life, because it's God who would guide you back together. It is God that would bring you together, especially if the two of you didn't part and you're trying to work it out. Then it's only God. The God says, hey, there's something here, work it out. But that is the same pastor that immigrants came in. And these were illegal immigrants came in. And they sat there and they had an interpreter. And he would preach. And the interpreter said, well, you need to slow the message up, because I can't interpret that fast. And, we need the message. And I said, what, are you insane? What if I slowed up my messages for someone else? Do you know? Look at how easy, Ruthie, you know me better than anybody, how easily the revelation could take flight.
Yeah.
Because if your full concentration is not on God, and something happens and you get distracted, it just leaves. And then you have to pray for God to bring it back. Well, if someone come up to me and said, well, you need to slow up so that I can catch up and interpretate, I would tell them straight out, no.
I remember when you told me when I was just all full of beans and talking because I hadn't talked to anyone in so long, and I would interrupt you. We being on the phone, I couldn't tell if you really had stopped with something, but you said, Ruthie, learn to flow with the Spirit, because when you do that, then that whole revelation stops. You explained the whole thing to me. I felt so bad, but I quickly got on board and understood and learned that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it happens that way. If somebody interrupts your train of thought and God has a message there and he's pouring it out on you, this probably the main reason why God put preachers behind pulpits and nobody could interrupt them. because if they're getting revelation from God, then it needs to flow and never be touched by anybody. And these people that actually believe that they should be able to stand up and rebuke the preacher and stop him, and they should be able to pray against him. Like I told you, there were witches in some of the churches I went in where they sat there and literally worked witchcraft on the preacher to see to it he couldn't preach certain ways. And it was always, and I could watch him just as he's about to tell the truth, boom, that witchcraft comes and says, "No, don't you dare say that." And he would stop like that. I watched it and it broke my heart that it came so powerfully strong and he had no idea as to why that was happening. But I'll tell you why. It was a member of his board. It was somebody that he was tight with. See, a perfect stranger comes in and sits down, and you begin to preach the truth, and he tries to quench your spirit. He can't touch you because you're not connected. But when you're connected to somebody and you've accepted them as a Christian and they're really a witch, you're in trouble because they can work all kinds of things on you. And I
That like
think I,
partaking?
pardon?
Is that like partaking of their evil
Evil
deeds?
deeds, absolutely. And thank God that this preacher, with where the immigrants were concerned, said he couldn't. Because when the flow comes, you can't slow it up. You've got to let God have his way. He's the one that anointed you. He's the one that knows what they need. And somebody else could come along and say, "What are you talking about that for? We don't need that." Well, maybe you don't. But there's a lot of people who do. So, who are you to tell God what message he should give or not give? Why? Because you're sitting there all alone out of thousands of people, and you need this and you need that. And so, God is supposed to take that person and feed only you? Uh uh. The Bible never did that. The Bible was never intended for personal interpretation, for you to look at and think, well, I'm the only one that got this. I'm the only one that can get this. I'm the only one that understands. I'm the only one that can do. I'm the only, because it's for me. Yeah, I mean it's a funny thing when you think about it, but when I laugh, it's God often laughs at the foolishness of man. He does. He often laughs because they are so foolish in their, and I call it their feeble minds. They're on this earth mind, and that's all they see, that's all they hear, that's all they know. And actually they get to a place where they don't care about nothing else. They don't care about nothing else except what they see and what they know. I see I have my, oh, oh, these poor people. Look at me. I had this magnified to 300. And that's because I have such a hard time seeing. Like, I've got numbers right in front of me telling me how long this video is, and it's real hard to see. I think it says 13 minutes. But look at me, when I read the mail, I thought it said Marion, and it said Robert. Hey, how could you get Marion out of Robert?
Wishful thinking, I guess.
Oh, I know that. I was expecting a package and it didn't come, and and so therefore, oh boy. People, people, people. I can see by those numbers in that little square before I shut this one off, you can see the number of how long the video is. So, anyway, I know I have decided that there are times where I will call you because I know there's things that God will bring out of me that only come by talking to you. There's a lot of things that I understand that I know that God will use me because you've seen, I mean, I lived for 40 years alone. I didn't need anybody with me. But there's some reason why God's doing this way, and I'm going to go with the flow.
Well, good enough. I'm
Y-
here.
Yeah, I'm going to let Him do what He wants to do. Uh, and he'll tell me when it's done. He'll tell me
Mm-hmm.
when, I should do this or I should do that. But if I would have called you this evening, which at times I do need to talk to you, if I would have called you, I'd have never got a tape done.
That's right. Yeah, this is kind of the two birds with one stone
Yeah,
deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
I never would have got it done because then I would have got off the phone and I might have been too tired, too exhausted to make the tape. But this way, we got both things done.
Yes.
And
Excellent. That's
the,
the way it does it.
yeah, yeah, and I'm glad. I know Greg is going to call me again soon. I think he asked me how I feel about Mondays, and uh, and that's probably what I'm going to do. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, I, I, I was like you, Ruthie. I didn't like the thought of doing live shows. As soon as he said it to me, everything in me went, "Oh no!" And then he said to interview me, and I said, "Oh no, I won't, no, nobody's going to interview me." Questions? You're going to ask me questions? No, nobody's going to ask me questions because it'll cut off the flow.
Yeah, or trap me, or entrap. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? Greg is anointed for it.
Yes, he is.
That's
Yes,
his
he is.
job to bring out the best in you. And that's what he does. He brings out the best in the Lord and me.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why I enjoy those. And I enjoy it so much because stuff comes out of me that might not necessarily come out any other way or time. So I'm
Well,
very
I know I love those. I love those sessions you do.
well. You know what is funny? As I told you this before, I love to listen to my own videos. I can put on my voice and walk around the house and re-listen to what God said because I know it's all God. It's not me.
Well, see, again, he makes such good use of things, and nothing's wasted. I love that, and yeah, because when it's flowing through you at the time, uh, boy, it's just flowing like you said. It just comes in those big waves, and you're not necessarily conscious of it because you didn't think of what you were going to say. It's him speaking.
You know
So
that's true. I'm
so
not.
of course later, then it's like a whole new thing for you too when you hear it, like for the first time.
Well, it's like I said, like, listening to the Bible at night before I go to bed and listening to it all night and stuff. I did say I'm going to go back into some of my videos and re-listen to them and remember what I said. Uh, but, I marvel at the place where God has me that, how do you make 700 videos? You know, uh, how do you remember everything? You don't, because you didn't make them.
I remember asking you, yeah, something like, with all that information coming in all the time, how do you keep track or how do you remember? No, 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 you don't.
You don't.
The Holy Spirit brings things to your remembrance. Just remember that.
Yeah, you don't retain it, you don't anything. You do whatever He is laying on your heart to do, and you have a freedom, an absolute flow of the freedom. And the Bible tells you that where the liberty is the Lord. Where you see the boldness is God, because the confidence that you have in God is so great that nothing can stop you.
Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is
Yes,
liberty.
there is liberty. That's right. Nobody can prevent you or stop you when you once you make that commitment with God and make up your mind that you are going to tell the truth no matter what anybody else thinks, says, or does. You are going to say it when God puts it on your heart. He tells you, open up your mouth and I will fill it.
Yes, sirree.
He told it to the Israelites, and he said, but my children would have none of me. So I gave them up to their own ways, their own imagination, their own whatever. Well, see, I don't want to be in that condition. Well, I think this is probably going on. I'm going to get me a magnifying glass. I'm going to work this thing out. I'm going to get my trusty magnifying glass.
Was
My
it Bob for you that
Yeah.
the handle on it or did it?
Yeah, see my daughter bought it for me, but it was my husband that put it on this because the thing that oh boy, the thing that she put it on was too big and too heavy. You pulled it down and you turned it this way, and then I could never get it straight. But this way, I can do it. See, now look at that. I can see it's 2034. Yeah, see, I can see a lot like that. But it's heavy. You ever try to go online to order something online and you hold that down?
Oh, that would be. I saw when you were speaking live with Greg, and I think it's when you were maybe going to look at one of the comments or something from somebody. I saw that you picked that thing up. It looked like a weapon.
Well,
It was heavy, and you leaned in with it, and it still you went, oh well, just
it
let me
is.
know.
I guarantee you, it is heavy.
It looked heavy. Yeah, I saw the weightiness of it. I said, oh no, she's got something in her hand. Step back.
Well, I ain't gonna hurt you ever.
We get to kid you forever about those things, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna let you go and I'm gonna stop my video and I probably won't put it on till tomorrow morning or in the middle of the night. If I'm
Alrighty.
if I'm still up in the middle of the night, then you will get my video.
Okay. Sounds like a plan, man.
Yeah. Well, I love you and God bless. Have a good night's sleep.
Thank you, my darling. Love you too.
Yeah, and I have to say good night to everybody else.